Okay, great. Great, coach. It works.
In there? All right, perfect.
I got you. So I can start the presentation, and I will start it in German. Introduce you, say some kind words about you and your book, and then we can move over to English and
Okay, perfect.
Okay. So, liebe Coaches, ich wünsche euch einen wunderschönen guten Abend und ja, darf heute Coach Everett begrüßen. Coach Everett hat an verschiedenen Schulen, an verschiedenen Universitäten.
Guck erstmal am Auge und sprechen.
Ich probiere gerade Tim einmal stumm zu schalten. So, Coach, can you mute Tim?
Mute Tim.
Yeah, because you are the host, I can't do this anymore.
Got it. Okay.
Great, thank you. Okay, dann nochmal, liebe Coaches. Ja, wie gesagt, Coach Everett hat an verschiedenen Colleges gecoacht. Unter anderem ist er jetzt auch in Verbindung mit verschiedenen NFL-Teams und hat neben seinem Coaching auch ein wegweisendes Buch für die 4-2-5 Defense geschrieben, welches ihr unter anderem bei Amazon finden könnt, was wirklich ganz viele Details präsentiert. Und Coach Everett wird heute über die 4-5G Defense sprechen. Und dementsprechend stehe ich euch gar nicht mehr im Weg und bin gespannt auf diesen tollen Vortrag. So, Coach, it's up to you, and I'm excited to listen and learn from you.
Yeah.
Okay, outstanding, guys. Well, thanks so much for having me on here. We got to.
Okay.
Ready, Coach?
Auf jeden Fall, Reinhold.
Yes, I'm ready.
Freut mich schon. Ja, da hast du einen großen Kampf.
I think it's Tim again.
It's Tim's back in. Yes. All right, there we go.
Okay.
I got him. All right. Well, thanks for having me here. I think this is really cool to be able to connect and to do this from across the way. Coach, I don't know if how you want to run this, but we got a small enough group that I think we can. If you guys are able to, interrupt me and jump in, with questions and things like that, I'll try to monitor the chat as best we can. If there's a question, not going to be able to translate though, unfortunately. So might have to work something out there. But what we're going to cover today is G defense. This is Virginia Tech 4-3 or the 4-2-5, depending on the package that you're in, whether you're in base or sub. This is a defense that I think is the most versatile against all different teams and style of offense that you're going to be able to play. It really fits and is rule-oriented. So even though I run a lot of odd front stuff now, this is what I always start with from a teaching standpoint, because all the other defenses that I run, it all stem from G defense. And this, in my opinion, is the best way to teach this. So we're going to kind of work through, just give you an idea of scheduling here. We're going to go over a couple of things that I believe. We're going to talk about why run G defense. We'll talk about the people that are in it, and then setting the front. And then I'm actually going to move run fits right there before we get into the coverage part of this, just so you can kind of see each one as they go. But that's what we're going to be talking about today. Let me just jump back again, and I'll have this in the beginning. This is my contact information on Twitter, and then my email address. So I hope you'll be able to see it. I love this stuff, so I will talk about this as much as anybody wants. My schedule is pretty flexible. I'm a football consultant now, which is, I got to be honest, the greatest job in the world, because I tell people what I think, and people call me for my opinions, and then, my hands are clean, and so I'm able to get into a lot of different things. Technology is kind of a big thing for me, so I'll show you some of the things that we use on the Go Army Edge app, and I'll give you some ways that you can access it outside of the United States as well. So just kind of starting off some things that I believe here. we're very fortunate to be a part of this game. And I think now more than ever, this has proven how important football is, and then how great football coaches are in terms of sharing. The fact that we can do this from across the world, big time NFL coaches are talking to people and sharing ideas and trying to get better. I just think that's a really cool thing. And I don't know if that's true in every sport, but football, this has really grabbed a hold of, the challenges that are out there right now. We got to be proud of that. The defense will always outnumber the offense. And this is something I will go to my grave saying. The defense has 14 people on the field, those two sidelines, and then the guy in the end zone. Technically, he's a player too, although he's not very good. But those two sidelines are defensive players. They have chosen a side of the ball, and they need to be used as pieces of your defense. Because the offense is penned in by them. So if you're not using them as another defender, you're really missing an opportunity. Because if you look at this and say the two sidelines give you 13 defenders, I always look at it that the offense has a guy who needs to carry the ball, so that he doesn't count in their numbers. And then usually the quarterback isn't running. He doesn't a lot of times count in their numbers. So there's only 9 offensive players that you need to cover with now 13 players. That can be a pretty powerful thing that's out there. So when we talk about run fits and things like that, you'll always hear me say the unblocked hat. And there will always be an unblocked hat on the field defensively. Our challenge as defensive coaches is to deploy that unblocked player in the best possible way and put that unblocked player in a position to make the tackle. I like this one. Don't be intimidated by football jargon. A lot of times, people get intimidated by the level of football that they're at, and people will use a certain word that they don't know, and that has nothing to do with how well you can communicate football. My suggestion is that, if you don't know what something means, just ask. Now, in our situation here, we're going to have to translate some things maybe, but, if you come across something that you don't know, more often than not, you're doing it already. You just call it something different. And so there are some absolutes, I believe, in our game, but people call things all over the place. So don't be intimidated by that. Ask that question. In addition to the technology part, numbers are a big part of what I believe in football. So the data that's involved in tendencies and trends of an opponent and of yourself as well. But they are a GPS. So a lot of the numbers and tendencies will drive a game plan that is developed, but you don't want that to be, the end-all be-all. You don't have to follow it to a T. You think about when you have something on your phone and it gives you the directions. If you have a gut feeling about a different way to go that might not be the right thing, just keep yourself with your gut, but knowing that the numbers will guide you where you want to go. But that doesn't have to be the path that you have to take. The true teachers, they never stop learning, and this time is just truly what's going on. There's so many opportunities to learn from different people. So be around people that you can reach out and talk to. And then I believe that, so there's no best way. The best way to do something is the way that you feel most comfortable. If you could have the best scheme in the world that somebody has taught you, and like this is the will stop everything that you see. If you can't teach it, it's not the way for your team. If your team doesn't understand what you're saying or can't execute that, that's not the best way. So find out your best way and what you can get across the best. And hopefully what we have today is you take away something that you can put in your own language and put in your own verbiage and kind of go from there. Coach, I got you. I'll show you some huddle. I'll show you some huddle columns. Okay, so why run G defense? There's going to be a couple different things. This is the top part of it is why you would do it from a foundational standpoint, and then the bottom is more schematic. But the early installs on this, when you talk about the all-down calls that we'll get, are these are the calls that are the foundation for everything else. So there's tweaks that will happen throughout the season, but these installs that are going to happen early on will build onto everything, or be the guts of everything else. These are calls that you can fall back to in times of when you need to stop and you don't know what to call, or tempo happens and you can't get a call, you know, these all down calls, what we call them all downs, meaning just those random calls that are not random calls, those calls that can happen between the 20s, you know, they're not situational calls. But they also can be built-in answers week to week. These are calls that will fit against everything. So these are more generic calls, not scheme-specific calls. Now down here, G defense specifically, you know, the 4-2-5 or the Virginia Tech 4-3, it is gap sound and it is designed to stop the run. And this is against all personnel. It fits against 10 personnel all the way to 22 personnel without having to change the personnel that the defense uses on the field. Well, a lot of the stuff I'm going to show you will major in a 2-high shell. It gets into 1-high very easily, which I like because that allows you to use smoke and mirrors and roll the secondary coverage and those back end things. And then it has an extra player. So as I said before, every defense will have an extra player, at least one. It's just how will you use that player. G defense, based on the where the front is set and what player you're protecting, that can be a different person, and the coach has the ability to dictate those things and put that extra player in the right thing based on what the offense is showing. Okay, so when we talk about the personnel on the field defensively here, so there's a couple of key components of these guys in the back seven. So we'll talk about the front guys in a second here, but let's just talk about the back seven. So first, the whip right here. This is the field side outside linebacker. It can also be your nickel if you're in a sub package. Realistically, you know, this is your most versatile player. He's a guy that can play inside the box, can play in man coverage, but is physical and fast. So, like, if you're deploying your assets, this is going to be your best player. He's placed to the field, and that's usually where the passing strength will go. So when you think about in high school, you know, the field is so wide in the United States. You know, college, the field is a little bit shorter, and then the pros, it actually doesn't matter. But, you know, this guy will get himself to the wide side of the field the majority of the time. And you can see the front is set here. This left call is where the front is set, and then the rip is the passing strength. So this is a left because of the location of the 3 technique, and a rip because of the passing strength. So now going to the rover and the backer, these two guys are going to travel together. So these guys are hybrid players. They really are outside linebacker. The backer needs to be an inside linebacker, but also an outside linebacker when you get into 10 personnel or 2x2 remove things. The rover needs to be a safety, but also needs to get down on the line of scrimmage against 2-back situations. So these guys really need to be able to be hybrid players. This guy will get a little bit more protection than him, and that just has to do with the location of the boundary. And then the same thing with the rover. The weak side safety, which the rover is going to get more protection than the field safety or the free safety because of the location of the field. So the free safeties, this guy right here is going to travel with the whip. He's always going to go to the passing strength. This is the player that, you know, in theory should have the best intelligence on the team, the best player in space. Everybody on the field needs to make tackles. You need 11 tacklers, but this guy is the guy that can be protected the most. What's important, though, is that these two travel together and these two travel together. And then the difference between the boundary and the field corner, some people play left and right. Some people play field and boundary. I believe, you know, in the pros, you need to go matchup, but in high school and college, field and boundary is the best way to go, because this player, while the boundary protects most of the players on the field, the space protects this guy in G defense. So this guy can really be hidden because statistically showing what we call passing zone 1, which is the field side under 5 yards. That's the least attacked zone that you have. And then the second least is the vertical to the field side. So this guy is able to be protected by the actual space, which is a little bit contradictory. Whereas this one right here, this is a shorter throw into the boundary. People attack every field zone into the boundary. So this guy, the boundary corner needs to be better than your field corner. So going down to 21 personnel, how things change. Now these guys get themselves into the box. The rover is now screwed down as an outside linebacker. And so you would get what looks like a 4-4 kind of look, but really it is the same personnel. These are all the same people. They're just deployed in a little bit different way, but their rules are kind of dictated on, 2 back and 1 back. So that's just who's on the field from a defensive standpoint. So now setting the front's important. When you talk about an odd front, it's pretty easy because you play a 0-2-3, 0-2-4s, 4 eyes, whatever. There's a balanced nature to it. The balanced nature of G defense happens on the back end. So now we're talking about the front. The location of the 3 technique is gonna be pretty important. From an offensive standpoint, those guys always look to where the bubble is. The bubble is the open side B gap. So the opposite side of that is where you're placing the 3 technique is going to be important. So on this screen right here, there's 6 different locations of where the back can be placed, and depending on the call and the coverage call, really, these are going to be paired together. But the huddle call is going to sound like strong G, so it's strong G cover 9. That's where the symbol is, but the strong G kind of goes into this progression where the tight end is, where the back is if there is no tight end, and then to the passing strength. If we called tight G, it would be to where the tight end is no matter what. Field G is where it is, anything beyond the goalpost. So even if the ball's not truly on the hash, but it's outside of the goalpost, you would set it to the wide side of the field. Then back G is setting it to the tailback side. Under is setting it opposite the Y or opposite the back. And then short G gets it into the boundary. So if you want it into the short side of the field, if you're bringing field pressure or something like that. So there are other ways to set this, but these are the 6 most common ways that are done. And this is where the tendencies of an offense really come into play, to say, whatever the situation is or whatever the personnel group or the backfield set or whatever it is that the offense is doing, that's the one that you want to choose right there. So within the front, the stud end, the tight end side end, the 3-man surface side end, the placement of that guy is going to be able to tell a lot about it also. Now, a lot of it depends on the coverage that's playing behind it, but obviously there's 3 different ways that can be played. Inside the Y, outside the Y, and then head up on the Y. We'll start with inside the Y because that's the first most common one. Now, I believe that the shade hand should always be down for up front people, and I believe that because on run downs, you want that shade hand down, so when that step is taken, your hands are on right there, and you have that power step that's there. The other reason why I like the shade hand down is because even on the inside leverage of this Y, he's still reading him. So if this guy arcs or something like that, he has to stretch it a little bit and then rock it back forward. But what I like about having the stud end placed inside the Y is it eliminates C gap. So if you have a player that is of lesser caliber but has to play, we need C gap taken care of. So you just put him there. Don't make it where he has to read. Don't make it so that he has to pry in somewhere. Just put him there and let him play. Now, the downside of that is your leverage on the perimeter, but you're still protected from a gap responsibility, and you can still get people there. So it's not like, just because we've lost this edge, we haven't lost this edge, and you'll see it when you're talking about from a coverage standpoint. So then obviously converse of this is when he's outside the Y. Outside the Y boxes the front pretty well. You want to play this on 3rd down. You can get a wide 9 and getting those guys playing. With an outside technique, it puts a little bit more stress on the backer, on the weak side linebacker, because now, assuming that you have your 3 techniques set here, so let's just say before we had it where the backer didn't have a gap. Now the backer has C gap. And so there's just a little bit more stress on it. He is no longer the protected player. But there are situations, whether it be pass or a certain backfield set, where an outside technique on the tight end, it might not matter. They may not be able to get to C gap. So you put this player in a position to make more plays and not worry about exposing the backer to C gap because they don't get the ball there. And then head up on the Y. This has big advantages. If you have a really talented player that can really control this, playing head up on the Y is important. The downside of it, in a pass standpoint, it really does kind of open up for multiple releases. So based on the release of those guys, you're not making it clear. But I can tell you there's huge value in the wing tee and playing the wing tee. There's a rule that says that when this guy's head up in buck sweep, it's the wing's responsibility to block this guy. Whereas if you put a guy inside him like this, it's the tight end's responsibility. So that would be a wing tee killer. We would know that from study and things like that. Or the first book I read my son was Tubby Raymond's Wing Tee Bible, and you got to know the enemy. And so that was something that we preyed on their rules, knowing that now the wing would try to release inside. We would put a better defensive lineman being asked to block by the wing. So that head up technique allowed us in a better position. So there's advantages and disadvantages to each one. My suggestion is you really evaluate your personnel and your opponents that you're seeing, whether in a season or week to week, so that you find out what home base needs to be. But they all have value when talking about it, but it should be connected to the coverage behind. Okay, so some tags that you're going to hear me say. Stress is a word that you're going to hear me say. What that means is, now we're talking coverage here. You're going to hear me say stress. It's the outside leverage player owns number 2 vertical. So what that gives us the ability to do is call a too high coverage, but screw somebody down to still account for the vertical, but get an extra player in the box. China call, which is huge in read 2 quarters. When number 1 hitches, the corner's going to call China, and I have film on all this that we'll be able to see, but I wanted everybody to get comfortable with it first. The flat player is going to open up and run. Under is kind of the opposite of China. It's when 1 or 2 drives in, the corner will yell under. And then buddy calls are pre-snap switch calls when you get stacked or you get tight splits, or you get attached tight end with a near back. Whenever you have 2 eligible people, the buddy is the call that says, hey, we're going to switch if there's any flat stems. Now, any vertical stems, it's off. As soon as they stem vertically, we're done with that. But these are going to be some things that you guys will commonly hear throughout, the next hour or so. Okay, so talking read 2 quarters, we call it cover 9. And the reason why is because that's what Bud Foster calls it at Virginia Tech. It's cover 9, but the other common words that you would have heard are palms. You hear it as, I call it read 2 quarters, but some people just call it quarters. Read 2, all these different things, but number 2 is going to dictate what the coverage looks like. The advantages of it: the apex field overhang that reduces the field down, even though he's not a force player. The leverage that he has on number 2, it allows him to be kind of a pseudo force player and really kind of shrink that field down. Although the true force is coming from the safety in the corner. Your extra player is going to be the whip or the backer, depending on where the front is set. It gives you a balanced look, so a too high, kind of if you consider 2x2 doubles, it's going to look pretty balanced as the offense is. And so whenever the offense can get balanced, it's pretty convenient when the defense can also. It looks like 2-man, so trying to disguise things as much as possible is important. But with the inside leverage of that overhang, it's going to look like 2-man. And then all the things that we're going to talk about have a built-in trips check and empty check, which I think is important. So now let's get into what this looks like. So I only drew up half the field on this because the other half looks the same. 2 removed people. So when you talk about the responsibilities, so this is the mic, here's the whip, here's the field corner, and then the free safety. So into the boundary, it's the backer, the boundary corner, and the rover. They hold the same responsibilities here as well. So the Mike, let's start on the inside. He's going to relate to 3. From a run fit standpoint, he's going to wrong arm or spill everything. He's an A-gap player, so he's right here. That's where his run fit responsibility is, and he's going to spill anything that comes. Moving outside to the whip, so from a run gap standpoint, he is a B-gap fitter. So this is one of the best things that this does. Bob Trott, who's a good friend of mine who's at East Carolina, he has one of the best and most simplest stunts. The whip, your overhang's responsible for B-gap. What happens if this guy stretches you out so, he's widened and he can't get in there? What Coach Trott would say is just make a black call and send that end right into B-gap, and now your responsibility is C-gap. And so I asked him, who's making that call? And he said the kid is making that call. The player's making that call. So that way, if this kid feels uncomfortable, he just says black, 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 and that spikes that end into B-gap. Now, you better not be doing that on, 3rd and 15. But you're empowering the player to say, you're responsible for B-gap. If you feel uncomfortable, this is what you can do. So now talking about what the responsibility is when we're talking about reading 2. So in my opinion, the way that I explain this, it's either he goes vertical or he doesn't. That's it. You can try to break this down a little bit further, but he either goes vertical or he doesn't. So what I say with these guys is vertical we consider to be at 5 yards. Those hips haven't dropped within 5 yards, he's vertical. And that's the easiest one to say, because if number 2 goes vertical, the field corner is on top of number 1, and the safety's on top of number 2. All right, now the whip's responsibility is going to be to wall this guy as long as possible and then get eyes on number 1. That's where we want to get eyes. So if you get something, just kind of delete this and go back. If you get that dagger concept, which I have drawn up later, he's going to wall this to protect the vertical, and then he's going to look to get underneath this. All right, these 2 guys right here are going to be pulling a string with number 3. So if you got something like, he goes in and you get this thing, these guys are going to push this off, exchange it. So if he goes vertical, it's pretty simple. When you get something that now he doesn't. And so I have it drawn up for the whip. There's 3 different things that can happen. He can go in, he can go out, or he can sit. It doesn't matter for these guys what happens with those 3 differential things. If he doesn't go vertical, the free safety is over number 1, and the field corner is under number 1. That's going to be a key piece here, because a lot of times, people will say you got to jump this route, that Ohio concept or something. It's like, no, you don't. What is the intention of the quarterback? Is he looking your way? Does he have his hand off the ball? Just because this guy went into the flat and this guy went vertical, this guy really can kind of feed off of what happens with the whip. Like I said, I kind of have all this drawn up also. So, but so what happens is the inside leverage of him, which I like to play him on a normal down as an apex, so right in between the 2 of these guys. That's where I like to play him. So, people say, well, what happens if he drives in? It's like, if he drives in, this guy's leverage should really close that off pretty well. Now, if he drives in and he drives out, like I said, these guys will push this across. But really playing an inside leverage like this is going to be pretty important. I think Cody Alexander was on for you guys last week. I think, he's more of a cover down guy and a true 4-2-5 nickel guy, where, he'll play inside leverage on him. So he's an automatic push when you get that. We like to play this and say, this guy's going to stop the run. We're going to put him in the run fit. We're going to use him as that extra player. So we play a little bit more inside on that one. So if he sits down, if he goes in, it's pretty simple. The whip's got him. The tricky part is, and the feel part is what happens when he goes out. So we'll put this at 5 yards. So it's not vertical. So the free safety is going to be over the top, and the field corner is going to be underneath this. The whip's going to expand on this, and he's going to look for potentially number 1 coming in. But he's going to keep chasing it, and the field corner is going to try to feel this thing out and see how it fits off it. So what I want to do here is I want to switch to – there are my boys right there. I want to switch to some pass fits here. And this is the Go Army Edge app. If you go to the website, it's not available in the app sense of outside of the United States. But if you go to the web page, which I'll put up at the end, you guys will be able to access this through the computer. But what this does is this gives us the ability to go anywhere on the field. So here's just kind of a view of, these are the weaknesses of quarters. You know, so the no cover zone right there, the immediate flat is a little bit of a weakness, and then the seam right here. But the walling of these guys is going to be pretty important to help out. All right, so right here, this is we'll start this thing out here. So right here, just getting smash into the boundary. So what happens, everybody's reading number 2, right there, he's vertical. So this guy knows he's got to get over top of number 1. The overhang, the whip or the backer is going to be walling off. This guy yelled China because number 1 hitched up. And so that guy goes and runs. And then look at what happens with this player right here. He's able to sit in that honey hole. The quarterback's not going to be allowed to flatten this thing out. And we have that thing, you know, coming and going vertically and everything else. Number 3 staying in blocked, so the mic just gets depth. All right, so let's go to the next coverage here. So this is that Ohio concept. So there's 2 different things happening here. So right here, this is not vertical. So that means number 2 did not go vertical. He's going to be over top of number 1. The free safety is going to be over top of number 1. The corner is going to be under number 1. And then the whip is going to expand, or the overhang is going to expand with number 2. So let's jump over to the field side and see what's happening. It's the same route combination, but watch what happens. So look at where the corner is. The corner is sitting there saying, I know 2 didn't go vertical, so I can be underneath number 1 and worry about that comeback and those things because he's got over the top. But notice how he didn't jump that out route. And he doesn't jump the out route the way that we have this drawn up for 2 different reasons. When you look at where the quarterback's intentions are, let's see if I can zoom into this helmet. So you look at this right here. I'm looking at the quarterback. The quarterback's intentions are going the other way. That's the quarterback's back that I'm seeing. I also see that the whip has pretty good in phase, out of phase with this guy. So I'm not going to jump on top of that. As opposed to on the other side of the field, where that ball is coming out, now that corner says, yeah, I'm jumping this. You know, here I go. I'm jumping that thing. Because there's a quarterback declaration, and the balls come out. So, you know, it really kind of depends, just because it's the same route combination, where things are happening on the field, and those things have a lot to do with it. Okay, so now here's an example. Look down at the bottom of the field. So number 2 sits down. So number 1's going to get in a trail position. And now he'll be ready for comebacks and all those things. We've now involved the Mike linebacker right there. Just add defensive labels so you guys can see who those guys are. So 3 expands. These 2 guys right here are going to pull that string. And so now this is the new number 3 that he's going to go wall, and then he's got this in the flat, but no need to jump the low-hanging fruit. I think this is last one, Cadillac, which I think is a great route. You know, like I said, the leverage of these guys, you should be eliminating that drive route so we don't need to push anything. So he's able to run and carry this. It's a fast exit from the number 3. So these 2 guys are going to pull the string, the mic and the whip. From a safety standpoint, number 2 went vertical for the free safety, so he's going to get over top of number 2. Whereas number 2 drags inside, so the rover is going to get over top of number 1 and look at the trail position that this guy gets in right there. So that's just kind of a couple route combinations that are fit out. I have film on all this stuff as well that you'll be able to see this. So jumping back into, let's talk about from a pro side standpoint. Now you have, it's still 2x2. It's still 11 personnel, but you have attached tight end here. You can put this thing where, you talk about the ball being on the hash right here. The rover doesn't need to be outside leverage at number 2 like he does necessarily to the field. You can kind of see where a lot of people say, well, like, where should I align these guys? It's like, I always thought with alignment, tell your guys what you want them to do, and then based on their ability, have them decide where they need to line up. This guy should be outside leverage, and I think 12 yards is a good place to start, but I've had guys be able to play it with, at 8 yards. To the field, I think this guy can play inside leverage, whereas into the boundary, he's got to play outside leverage. But into the pro side, so this rover doesn't need to be outside of an attached tight end here. There could be stress, so we'll talk more about that later. But, now his fit, depending on the stud, the location of the stud there. But the rules are still the same. So now you go into cover 9, and it's 3x1. So what I like about this 3x1 adjustment is everybody, for the most part, stays the same with the exception of the rover. So the whip is still going to be reading number 2. The only difference is he's going to jump drop off of number 3, which means he's going to address him from the outside and just kind of backpedal for a couple steps to make sure that ball doesn't come out hot. We also give the illusion that, hey, maybe this isn't quarters coverage. Maybe, we're playing something different with this guy. But what ends up happening is it plays out, it's exactly the same. His run fit is right here. The mic is still responsible for 3, which is right here. So he's going to take what we call the fast 3, because with number 3 going vertical, you can see it right here. The rover is responsible for 3 vertical. Now, if he breaks it out, the rover turns into a jump drop. On the weak side, this backer, we call this stress. So if he goes vertical, he's got to run with him. The negative part about this coverage, playing it this way, this guy's pretty much by himself. Now, the location of the backer, he can line up a little bit more outside and provide kind of slant presence, what we call it, but he's not punching out unless there's a call that's involved in that, which usually we wouldn't call this coverage here. So, it's pretty much man coverage to this side, which then when you get into empty, it turns into the same thing. So these 4 guys are still playing 4/3 right here, or I guess 5 guys because he's got the alert. These guys have the weak side too, so there still is true stress. So the other all-down calls that we'll have will be, this puts a lot more stress on this side. The other all-down calls that we have take the stress off this side. So it really kind of depends on your ability of this player right here. Can he hold up by himself? And if that's the case, if he can, it's pretty good to this is a good coverage because it overloads the 3 receiver side. And this is really good when you get kind of 4 strong. So before we jump into film, let's jump in right here. So here's just some all down fits of, here's some things that can happen. I think this is a good view when you look at the whip. He's going to kind of like backpedal off it. Okay, let's go to the next one here. Same idea. So he backpedals a little bit, and then he goes and punches out right there. 3 went vertical. We got that. So the question is, isn't the drag in the no cover zone? Yes, in the true sense, but we're talking about because where we play this. Let me go back to 2x2 so I can play with 3x1. So this guy right here, oops, let's go something where he drags. There we go. So he's not necessarily jumping this per se. And I know it's kind of drawn up that he's jumping this, but when we say no cover, we're still going to carry it across the field. So like what we're saying is we're not jumping low-hanging fruit unless there's a declaration by the quarterback to say that we have to have it. But I've always taken these drags and meshes that because the backer may or may not be out on the other side, we got to account for this guy, because you take a drag by number 2, he's going to push that thing and pass it off. So yes, technically it is in the no cover zone, but we fit these out a little bit differently on those things. Okay, that's good. There's another one there. Play before I got you in the 3x1. The NCAA. Let me go back to 2x2. So the question here isn't the drag in the, I think this is it right here. So right here, but this kind of goes back to the leverage that we have on this. So because of the inside leverage relationship right there, and then there's no one to push it to, because he's relating to 3, the Mike. So like right here, he's got to carry this, and it's not too much stress on him either because of the inside leverage that he has. Because what this allows us to do, because he's relating to 3, these 2 guys are going to pull their string, but you can see there's no one left to push it to. So he has to carry this. So he's not necessarily jumping it, even though it kind of does look like he's jumping it there. When we say no cover, it's really more of, you look down on these guys right here, like we're not going to go hug this stuff up. That kind of goes to a language sort of thing. Like we're not going to jump this low-hanging fruit. We're going to rally to this later, in that no cover zone. Coach, if that helps you right there. All right, so let's keep going on. Load this stuff up. All right, so let's get some film going here. All right, so this one is strong G. This is cover 9. So this is from a run standpoint, being able to take a look at what's going on. I think I optimized my film, so hopefully it's not too choppy. But so we got a stand-up end right there. You can see where those guys are playing. So he's bluffed this pressure, and then you can see where those extra guys are coming from. We'll talk about this in the run fits in just one second. Okay, so getting into a pass concept. So this, if you look at the top of the screen, so like right here, this guy drives in. You got number 2 going vertical. So this corner is going to yell under, meaning that he's going to now drive on the under route. And then look at how this corner plays underneath this because his safety's over top. Question here is, do you box or spill with the end? We're going to spill with all this on that clip that I showed you. The guy boxed it, but we're going to spill with all this. But you look at where the corner's playing this. He should actually cut this a little bit more. But because of that guy, because of the vertical coverage by the safety up here, he's got that right there. This is a technique against stack. We call this top hat. It looks like whenever anybody presses a stack, it's usually like these 2 have each other. We use this as, at least that's what the offensive guys think. This guy actually has him. So it's just a good technique to kind of throw those things off. And then these 2 guys bracket it from there. Let's see if I can hammer through this film quickly to get to the run fits. Okay, here's some bluff stuff that's there. We're in cover 9 again. So this is a good idea about what's happening from a screen standpoint. So that corner is going to come down and cage this thing. And we're going to fit that from the inside out. The safety is ultimately going to make the tackle, because this is run pretty well by getting the tackle out as well. So this leaves the safety and the Mike as the free hitters on this. And with the exit of him, that pulls the Mike. So it leaves the backer as the next guy. Okay, so I like this clip right here. Look at the outside leverage, and we're going to talk about robber coverage in a second, but you look at the outside leverage here. He flips that thing. If you look at the huddle call, it says bluff 22. So we're bluffing robber coverage and to give this quarterback not a very good picture. And then he hops himself right inside when he feels comfortable for it. And you can see what happens so that it fits out perfectly. You look at the bottom of the screen, you know, the corner sees him disappear, and so he plays underneath this thing and then goes down and triggers when that ball comes out. If you look at the top of the screen, how those guys are playing it, you know, so look at that corner. When you try to look at that quarterback wants to sling that thing out right now. And he doesn't know whether to throw it in the honey hole or to throw it here because of how this guy played it. And then he's got to come off of it because of the pressure. You know, so being patient and really talking about reading quarterbacks' intentions. I'll give you this view too. You look at that, you know, hand coming off the ball is a huge indicator. You can't throw the ball with the front hand on. Just talking to your guys about that stuff. Okay, here's some more two-back stuff. So now what we did here is this is a stress call. So he went down and screwed himself down here, bumped the linebacker into the box. And then you look how this thing plays out. So now he would have to own him. If he goes vertical, he's got to own him. But it gave us, you know, a good 8-man box right there. And then it also accounted if they did run the verticals, we're in good shape. All right, you look it up at the top. You probably get a better wall out of him, but that guy's so far removed outside the hash, he's not necessarily worried about it. But look at the exchange from these two guys right there. You know, pretty good deal. Okay, here's just a cover 9. So we talked about the jump drop. Front's a little bit different, but the coverage is the same. You look at this player right here, this is the whip. Watch how he plays this. Jump drops and then get into your wall situation. And you can see we're just flashing some really solid color, you know, in the view of where the quarterback wants to go. Okay. All right, so let me jump into some run fits real quick. All right, here we go. All right, so this is going to be 2x2. So I changed some jerseys. I went and typed in the hex code of the German flag. So there you go. You got some jerseys for you. I will be honest, the United States on defense right here now, so we're going to win on this play at least. So this overhang has B gap. We protected this guy with the 3 technique. So this is our extra player. We played back G right here, meaning we're saying that we want this ball handed off. Like we don't want the quarterback to keep the ball. You know, so if you get into a zone read situation, but you look at this, we have enough guys in the box because of 6 guys where this guy can play. You know, this right here, playing back G and cover 9 or read 2 quarters, this is a great RPO coverage because this guy can be patient because he doesn't have to fold into B gap. You know, so he can be a little bit more patient coming through there. Okay, so now we've set it the other way. So now we're setting to the tight end right here. So now the whip does have to be in B gap. So this is strong G or tight G, depending on how it was called. So this is drawn up where, all right, this guy based on the backfield set, now we've got a near back. This guy's pretty good. It's an RPO down. I'm going to make a black call. So instead of having to get into B gap, now I have to get into C gap. You know, so you can see that guy just spikes in and protects where this guy is. So even though he is in the run fit, he's now protected to be able to slow play the RPO and kind of muddy up that picture for the quarterback. And what it does on this side, you know, now that backer, he does not have a gap. So he's an extra fitter, and that can be deployed in a variety of ways. So that's going to be read quarters, read 2 quarters, cover 9, however you want to talk through it. I'm going to jump into robber coverage now. So this is called cover 2 in the G defense in the Virginia Tech world. It's not cover 2 of everybody else in the world. It's not hard corners. This is robber coverage where it's half field stuff. But there's a declared force, so there are overhangs on that side. It's true split field coverage. There's 9 guys in the box all the time. And while there is a built-in trips and empty check, just like there is on the other one, this one is it really sound against the weak side of the field. So this is what this looks like right here. Oops. So the whip's going to play on outside leverage, and he's going to be the force player. So everyone's still reading 2. So the field corner is the apex guy. He's reading 2, and he's the flat defender. So it still is, you have a flat player. You're able to handle 4 vertical. If you look at the free safety rules, if number 2 goes vertical, we're going to carry him underneath. All right. If number 2 doesn't go vertical, we're going to rob number 1. The corner's responsible for midpointing. You know, he's going to apex this thing. But the flat player, when we don't punch out unless there's a call, but his things that drag him to the flat or the quarterback eyes, the route that takes you there, something like this, or a China call from the corner. I like this coverage because it really puts this guy heavy in the short hole. You know, whereas before we were vulnerable in the seam, or sorry, in the post. Now with the leverage of him inside of 2, you're really not that vulnerable. So this guy can play shorter and protects as a more of a scramble quarterback. You know, a late insert guy. You know, it kills the drags. You know, because of where he's hammering that thing. On the pro side of this is where that screw call comes in, and you get down in the stress from the rover. So if he goes vertical, the rover's going to carry him. If he drives in, he's just going to push it to these 2 guys. But what this allows us to do is, if you don't make this call, the backer's out here and the rover's here. By making the stress call, now it pushes the backer in and you really get a strong box. When you get that stress call, the corner is solo on this one, though, unless you get a China call. So the 3x1 part of this, it's going to be the same when you slide these guys over. So these 3 guys are still the same. The only difference with the free safety is now reading 3-2 instead of 2-1. So if 3 goes vertical, the free safety's out of this. This Mike and backer not switch spots, they just bump over. So he's going to wall 3, and he's now the short hole player. I've had situations where the backer can flop over and be that guy. But what's nice about this is these 3 guys stay the same. Into the boundary, now you have 2 good guys against the 1 receiver. So this is where you can shake this up, and, you know, he hammers it and he plays vertical. You know, you can punch it where he's an apex guy, and you punch where you can keep the stress rules on and you get those things right there. But this is really applicable when you get into empty, because now you can play quarters to this side and then robber coverage to this side. So that really kind of plays in there. The other thing that's great about this is that if you're playing 21 personnel teams, this is going to be your go-to deal. You know, so it's going to look like you're going to get those 9 guys into the box, whether it's twins, whether it's pro, it doesn't really matter. You know, and you can get cover 9 right here. You can get robber coverage right there. All of those things can be the same. So jumping into some film. And you can see what happens. So this guy, there's no alert. So the rover screws himself down into the box. And then look at where he ends up. You know, everybody, they're trying to run power to the front side. If that guy wasn't there, he would be running away from him. This is not a great tackle, but, you know, it gives us that true, you know, those true players inside the box, you know, against 1 back, 2 back, it doesn't matter. Still the same thing. We're going to box everything. Coach, 1 question, screen is bad. Just change this real quick. I thought I optimized turn off your camera.
Yes, sometimes it's worked when the presenter turn out the cam.
Okay. So I have it optimized. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problems.
Let's see. Show video camera. So let me see. Stop video. Okay. Let's see if that helps us a little bit. Okay. All right, let's hopefully that gets better here. Okay, so if you look down at the bottom of the screen, so number 15 is the whip. So you can see he's kind of junk dropping. He doesn't need to go crazy and punch out to the flat because the quarterback's intentions are going to this side. You get a vertical by number 2, so you look at how the free safety's playing underneath that, and the corner is going to be on top of it. Now, hopefully, this corner said China to handle this route right there, but because of the quarterback's intentions, it doesn't necessarily matter. All right, let's jump into another one here. So same thing, we're kind of bluffing some things around. This is a stress call right here. So you can see the rover has to handle this vertically. You know, and that's a tough play. This is a good football play, especially with the play action of it. But you can see, you know, he's pretty protected, and we'll make that, you know, that tackle, you know, all the way through and be okay there. But this is what stress looks like, where he's going to have to carry that thing vertical from the outside. Okay, so here we go. Same thing, we're bluffing that. And then so you look what happens. So the number 15, the whip here, kind of jump drops off it, and now he's going to go find underneath with the dig. You know, this ends up being really powerful. Look at what happens with the free safety. He knows that he's got coverage over top with this apex player. And then look at that coverage. Now the kid drops it. It's a freshman. That's disappointing. But, you know, this is about as well as you can fit out robber coverage, you know, which I just think is a great coverage, both in the run and the pass. Okay, now you're talking about 10 personnel. So right here, with this drive right there into the short hole, he's going to turn his attention and go get an idea about where that kid is. And, you know, we talked about this, no cover zones. You know, we're going to let that kid catch the ball, and we're going to rally and make a tackle. Now, this is not a very good tackle by 15, but, you know, he's a pretty good player. But more often than not, we're going to rally to that. Okay, getting into 3-by-1. So now the call turns into sync. So now the free safety is going to read 3-2. So as soon as 3 goes vertical, the free safety's got to carry him. You know, but you can see, I like this clip really, really good, really well here because, you know, look at how that field is shortened. You know, that's a great play by 15. You know, but they're trying to attack the perimeter, and we shortened that field down pretty well and got a lot of guys running inside out. All right, here's 3-by-1 again. You know, same idea. Look at the leverage of this guy. They tried to come at it from a tunnel standpoint, and he's able to really hammer that thing through. And then that right there is the mic, you know, really triggering off this because he doesn't have to get any depth. He comes and blows that thing up. So I'll show you one more sync call here. You know, I told you the advantage of sync is you have 2 good cover players on 1 over here, as opposed to cover 9 is just the 1. You know, but now we're able to take those 2 guys away. This is a really good route combination to stick and nod. When I go to the end zone view, 27 right here should not be as wide. You know, so he should be sitting right here, which makes this a little bit better. You know, it's a good play by these guys, but it should have been an even better play closing those guys off. They pull up, shoot, what's in there? We hit that run fit real quick. And I'll show you what this looks like against power. Coach, how are we doing on time? You're right here. We got a little bit more time.
Yeah, you have got time.
Okay. Just want to get through a couple more things here. So now this is 21 personnel stuff. So this is robber coverage right here. So they're just running weak side ISO. So this is what we call 4 weak. Yeah. So this right here is the rover. When I turn on those labels, you're gonna be able to see that's the rover right there. So it really gets us those 9 guys in the box right there. And so you see how we're able to handle this. He's hammering and spilling right there. And then there's our unblocked hat. And when we run that to the 3-man surface, it's the same concept. So we're going to wrong arm right there with our 5 technique at defensive end right there, or sorry, the stud end. So he's going to wrong arm. The Mike's going to wrong arm. And then that free safety is the unblocked hat. And so you look through this, he's going to set the edge as the force player. This is robber coverage to that side. And all this is accounting for that no one else gets a win somewhere else. You know, we're just saying that, yeah, everyone's going to fit out, but it's ultimately going to be this guy ends up making the tackle. What I like about stuff like this from a drilling standpoint, why I believe simulation is so powerful, is you can like drill this for the player over and over again and show them exactly like this is what's going to happen. That's where those guys are going to fit off, and that's where we're going to get ourselves in a good left shoulder, in this case, outside in fit. Okay, so driving to, so that's our robber coverage stuff. I want to get to our match stuff. So this is man free. So the man free part of it is not as exciting when you talk about, you know, traditional 2x2 or things like that. I will tell you the way that we play it is these guys play with outside leverage. There's no pressure involved in this, so it's still a 4-man rush. Because of the relation to these guys, we have to box everything. So on the previous 2 coverages, we spill everything. But in this coverage, we box everything. So the end's actually going to set the edge just because of the relation right there. But we're going to play with outside leverage. But the China calls, the under calls, they still are applying. Same idea here. There's a couple different ways to play this. This is our day 1. These 2 guys, the rover and the backer, are the ones related to the back. Mike has 3 like he normally does. But these guys have an automatic buddy just based on the inside-out nature of these 2. And I have some good film off of that. But what I like about playing it like this is it puts the free safety always in the middle of the field. So rather than spinning your safeties, you know, based on if it's 3x1 or 2x2, we're saying the free safety is always in the middle of the field. Okay, but this is where I think it's pretty powerful. And this is a Virginia Tech 21 personnel killer. It's called RAT. How do you handle force and man free? Yeah, so the end is the force. So technically with the outside leverage, I'll go back to that thing. You know, so go to 2x2 here. Okay, so he is the force player right here. If the ball got out to here, the outside linebacker still is the would be a force player. The reason why in man free is like if you got this guy running him off, you know, you can't tell him like don't carry him. He's got to run. So I just believe that you can't ask a guy to. You need to give a guy some help in the force department if you know you're asking to be in man coverage. So that's why we play it like that, where he's setting the edge. Now, if you get something where he's going there and then you get the vertical part of it, we can switch these things off depending on the split of him because of the post safety that's there. So that's why we set the end and we box those guys just from a run standpoint. All right, so getting back to the Y off part. So we're going to keep the inside linebackers relating to 3, relating to the tailback. But now the Y off part, because he can slice across the formation, we have these guys relate to him. So when you look at this, you know, if you got this right here, it will look like that. you know, so that this is a killer for, you know, those slice zone plays that everyone's doing, you know, because these two guys are going to be triggering in these gaps, you know, and if you don't account for the extra gap that's added with the Y slicing across, you know, you're going to be a guy short. And that's true whether this guy's boxing or not. Like, he's technically going to fit in off of where this guy is. But, you know, this is going to be the most powerful thing that happens. The best thing that we have in our tool bag against man free. Let me get to a good clip here. Or against Y off stuff, excuse me. Okay. Okay. So this is Y off. Now it's 21 personnel. No, that's not the one I want. Sorry. Okay. So you're going to see, and this is a bad play. This is a touchdown, but because he's not using his help. But this is the example of the buddy. So this is the mic. This is the whip. They're inside out on these two. So they're going to buddy this. So as soon as that guy stems right there, the mic knows that he's got his new number 3. Now, what he has to do a better job of is knowing that he's got post help. He should have been better with his leverage. That happened right before the half, so that was a huge bummer. But I like put it on there because it shows, like, you know where your help is. We got a middle of the field close. This guy should be coming right to, like, wall him off right in his hip pocket, knowing that he's got the middle field closed. Okay. Try to fast forward this thing. Okay. So let's go to, I thought I had some good fun on that on this playlist. So I'm going to go through the run fits about what that looks like on the on those guys right there where the yin and the yang thing happens. So let me just fast forward real quick. Get the internet slow down here, guys. Sorry. Let's come at it a different way.
But it's clear now. We can see.
Okay, it's coming through. Yeah, it's just kind of, let's do this. Okay, let's just do it from here. All right, so you watch this one right here. So what these two guys right here are ratting number 83. So right there, he stays front side. So we're going to box that thing with the end. You know, this is just simple power out of a Y off deal. So everyone else is going to play the same way, but because we're in our man free call, instead of spilling this because we don't have the overhang, you know, he's going to box that thing. The mic's still going to wrong arm, and then the free safety is the unblocked hat. Let me spin this around to see it like this way. This is a great RPO killer because it gets the concept of man free and then the flexibility to insert the safeties to both sides. So now let's see it from a slice standpoint. So now the Y-off's going to slice across. So you saw in the last one, these two guys were going with pullers. They go with pullers, but they don't go with slicers because we are accounting for that on the third level with these two guys right here. So they're going to be gap sound on this one, but you can see how we get that new C gap player right in here with the free safety. And then the rover kind of cleans that up. So just kind of some things just to finish up here. You know, be creative with your technology, but find the balance between efficiency and effectiveness. You know, especially with that simulation program, there's a ton of stuff that can happen. You can draw up a ton of different stuff, but it can be a little bit over the top sometimes. You know, I think from a formation recognition standpoint, that's where I find it most valuable from a defensive standpoint. So I can show you some things breaking a huddle in a heartbeat that you can recreate scripts and things like that pretty quickly. Yeah, I think this is important. Trust yourself. I think everybody's got value as a football coach, and if you're always trying to learn and things like that and asking things, be confident in what you do know and be confident to be able to ask somebody if you don't understand what's going on. Some favorite things that I have, on my machine here, the snipping tool, it's just built into Microsoft. It gives you the ability to just snip things out and paste them in. I love using Google Forms to be able to assess things. Since we've been in this quarantine, there's been Lumosity is this brain game that even my kids play on the iPad. And then the stuff that I've shown you is the Go Army Edge simulation. I'm going to type this into the chat. This website will allow anybody in the world to access it. So if you go to that website that I just put in the chat, you can access all that stuff and draw plays and things like that. Just when they ask you for a US zip code, just look up one and type it in there. But your phone needs to be set into the US region to be able to access it on your phone. But this way it gives you you can access all the same stuff on the web player. So there's my contact information. Again, I know we kind of covered a lot of stuff and it went pretty quick. But if you email me, I know Coach is recording this, but we can talk more about it. I can send you this presentation, share the huddle clips or something like that. Give you a little bit better clarity on the film and those things. But that's my presentation right here. I don't know, Coach, if we have any time for questions but thanks for the opportunity to do this.
Yeah, Coach, thank you very much from my side. That was awesome. I really liked how you built in the media part. From my standpoint, I knew the Go Army Edge. But when I tried it, I think 1 year ago, it doesn't work in Germany. So I'm excited that it's now working. And I try. I've got a coach from mine. He already tested it during the presentation. So
perfect, nice. And I do know, kind of off the record, I think there's a way to change your phone settings to the US.
Okay.
And then download it and then change it back. I don't know how to, but I've heard that's a way that people do it. But that website that I put in there, it has all the same functionality of what I showed on the app version right there. But it's a huge tool. It's a huge tool for coaches. I can show you. I think I have one kind of set up here pretty quickly, but I'll just show you a formation recognition thing that's just been awesome for us. These are all my playbook stuff, and there it is. But then, just showing how fast you can do things. I'll just show you well, this is an offensive one, but it still gets the same concept done. I can drill the quarterback so this is just basic Hank stuff. I can drill the quarterback automatically and just ask the guy, where are you going with the ball? Reading the tightest hook player. So he's looking at the Mike and the Sam right there, and we'll just do this one together. Boom, tightest hook player is the S. They gave him some space. I'm going over the ball right now. And we're able to, rapid fire this thing over and over again. It can be a pretty good deal. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what's there.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
I don't have school tomorrow, so I can work.
Outstanding. Yeah, and reach out to me either on Twitter or through email if anybody needs anything getting set up. I've been part of that, the development team on it at all levels. I took this to the professional level, and I do consulting on it. That's what takes most of my time now with guys in the NFL. And I'll show you some best practice stuff. I can share a bunch of stuff to you. So just let me know how I can help.
Yeah, I will definitely come back to you when I'm working into that. But that sounds pretty cool. But except from that Go Army Edge, I really like your presentation. I like your style of defense. So we play the same. We switched to a 4-5 this year.
Awesome.
Playing the last years with in 3 down fronts, but we have more very good defensive linemen this year for German level. So we switched over to 4-5, and I can really use your deep presentation over some schematic
Awesome.
points for our
And
team.
there's deeper stuff in there. There's no question. But you're going to stop the run. That's the thing. You're going to force them out of something, and then they're going to have to be a different way. Because if you play the gap rules and follow those things in there, you'll shut people down.
So that's great. If no one has any questions, it's up to me to say thank you, Coach, for your time. I really appreciate your great presentation. I think everyone can get something out of it, and you helped to make the game better over here.
Perfect, guys. Well, thanks so much. Just hit me up if I can do anything, and good luck to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Coach. Have a nice day and stay safe during this time.
All right, guys. You too.
Goodbye, Coach.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.